Okay, we're back and we're going to finish the Wasp build. Okay, here's the wing center section. I want to show you some other things I did. So what I did here is I took some 3/16 that I had, and the lightest that I had, it was 6 pounds, under 6 pounds. Okay, and I put that in. You can see here the rib is only a 32nd. So there's no way you're going to put the covering, and I'm going to use Mylar here, and have that stick to the 32nd. It can shrink and pull off. So you need more surface area. Okay, and I just use Yoo-Hoo glue stick as well, but as long as you have a good surface area, you're fine. So I put that in here on the top. I also did it on the bottom, you see, where the wing comes. So most of this is nice and, most of this is nice and flat here. Okay, and here I put it so, you know, I get a nice area for the covering to grab onto. Alright, I also sheeted in here. Now this part is going to have like the fuselage, I'm going to have polyspan, but I made it easier by just sheeting in these little complicated areas with a thin 32nd sheet. I also put holes in the ply. I was trying to lighten it up here, and you can see here I just cut out a bunch. And the same here, it had this big piece on the end, but I ended up cutting it off and cutting it there, and I think that's enough. Just trying to save some weight, okay? Also the back, I see it comes out, it's extended. You can see it goes like that. And the reason why is there's a little windshield that comes here, and then the cockpit goes there. I'd have to vacuum form that, we'll see about it. Now I did get going, so since I got most of that done, I was able to fit it here. So here I just used a 16 sheet, and I made the little cockpit, and then I kind of fitted it in. So the wing just kind of, let me pull the camera back a little. The wing just kind of slides in like that. There you go. And then I'll put hold downs for rubber bands. So you can see it's got a nice fit here, and also on the side as well. Okay. So we're pretty much ready to go. I'll get the rest of the wing going. And so we'll get at least the top wing done, and then we're going to have to fit in the bottom wing. Okay, so now I'm making the wing, which is here, and this is just built flat. But I just wanted to show you, and I always do this when you have a center section, I actually just put it in place. It's not glued there, and I just do that so you can align things, okay? I've had experience on other plans where it wasn't drawn correctly, and so it didn't line up exactly, and you know, you don't want to find that out later on. Alright, so what I always do is put it just in place here. Now I'm going to remove it. So the trailing edge lined up nicely. I notched the leading edge. That was perfect. Get a few ribs in to kind of solidify it. Okay, and now that that's done, it's been drying for a while. I'm just going to, you can see this isn't glued in, you see. I just put that, but now I know it lines up perfectly when I join this later on, and so I'll finish the rest of the wing now. Okay, so I thought I'd show you what I'm doing. And so first I glued on this wing, okay, not with a jig. Alright, I just set it up and I did it by eye. You know, sometimes I've done the jig and then I've taken it off. The jig might be within 1/100th, but you can still tell with the eye that's a little off. So I really strongly believe doing things by eye is good. You want to make sure the leading edge and the trailing edge both look nice, and they did. Alright, so after I got that one done, now I'm doing this one, but now I'm going to use little jig things. These are from Retro RC, and I just set them both the same height, so I knew exactly what the height was at that rib. And I set it exactly the same height at this rib, okay, just to make sure. And of course I still eyed it to make sure it flowed in and it looked like it joined nice. So we got that done. We're going to let that dry. And then I cut off the ply here. You know, the ply is a little warped, and I did it on the other side. You may not be able to see it. I cut it off. Okay, and then I also, you'll see I put a top spar. So as I said, I didn't really do the big bottom spar. I just did a 16 by an eighth, and then over here you can see I finished it. I did a 16 by an eighth top spar. Okay, that's a lot stronger because the wing's going to go this way, so it's compressing it. And then the last thing I have to do is put on the leading edge. You can see here it is for this side. I already did that side, and then I got to sand it to shape, and we're ready to go. Okay, so I've done a bunch of things. Okay, here's the wing. You can see I got that finished. And I spent some time to make sure it fit in here really nice. Okay, I filled in here to make sure there aren't any gaps or anything like that.
I also put the, whoops, let me get this up a little bit. I also put the cockpit in. That's just a 16 sheet. I made the lower wing, and again, I didn't use the big bottom spar. I used a 16th by 3/32 top and bottom spar. It's not only stronger, but you really need it for the mylar here on the top. And also, I don't like to just have ribs like that hanging. It doesn't look right when you cover it. It's better to have a spar there. Okay, now I spent quite a bit of time fitting this lower wing in. Let me show you what I did here. And I basically made a plug here and here. So it just plugs in nice because you want to make sure you get it positioned perfectly. And now what I've been doing, so let me plug it in. Now what I've been doing is I've been lightly sanding here. You got to see it, it has to fit nice. But also I want to make sure that the wings are perfectly parallel. So I've been spending some time sanding to get them as close as possible. Then I got to figure out, I got to fill in here a little bit on the bottom, okay? I was originally going to sheet it, but I want to make it match into the fuselage a little bit nicer, so we'll see. So I'm working on that. I also sheeted in here in the front on the nose, okay? And I'm going to get going here on the nose button. I have some block here. I'm going to make this nicer round, I think, on my drill press. Let's see, I also made the stab and the rudder. So here's the stab, okay? This also has laminated wingtips. So this is pretty much ready to go. And here's the rudder, and I make it like it's slot so it just kind of goes in there because I'm going to cover and paint it first since they're different colors. All right, so this just kind of plugs right in and then we're ready to go there. Okay, so we're getting there. I have to figure out how I'm going to mount this stab, and I also want to make it so it's adjustable. Because I think what's going to be tricky flying this plane is that you really can't adjust the incidence of the wings or anything because of the way they're built in. I could do a little on the bottom, but it's going to mess up how it fits in with the fuselage. So I'm going to have to make the stab adjustable. Alright, so we're going to get to those parts. And the landing gear is also tricky. They really only leave you space to slip a wire in there, but I'm going to make it removable. So we're going to have to see how I'm going to have to do that as well. Okay? But it's coming along, it's starting to look like a biplane here, and we'll continue and see how it goes. All right, the Wasp. It's actually 4.5 years later from the prior frame. You know, I kind of got most of it built and then just put it aside, and that's it. It's been sitting for years. So recently I finished up another one like that, the Skyrider, that was sitting around for 3 years. And I actually finally finished it and got it out and flew it. It's fantastic, really. So that kind of motivated me to get going on this because this has been sitting around for 5 years, all right? And also what I decided to do, I went back and I took a look at the video I already made, and I was like, oh my God, it's already over 30 minutes. So I'm gonna do the Wasp here in 2 parts. So part 1 will be the building, all right? And then part 2, I'll do the covering and the flying. I'm hoping that maybe for this spring, you know, maybe I can get it out this spring this time. All I have to really do is get it covered, all right? So I'm going to kind of pick up from where I left off. And the last thing I was talking about is I was trying to figure out how to put in the landing gear and the stab. So let me show you, since I did that, what I did. Let's start with the stab because that was pretty easy. All I really did there is, whoops, you can see the rudder plugs into the stab. I showed you that once before because I'm going to cover it and paint it first. And then I just put a little plug on the bottom of the stab here, you see. I also put a little platform here. You don't want anything rocking, and then it just keys in there. There you go, you see. So it'll key right in there. And then the other thing is there's a little rubber band that holds it down that goes from front to back. There's another hole here. The toothpick right now, by the way, is just a placeholder. You can see I have that on the wing as well. Okay, I take those out, I cover the whole thing, and then I put the dowels in later on after it's covered so it's nice and smooth. Now the other tricky part was this landing gear, and I actually made 2 of them, but here's one of them, all right? I just used some balsa wheels, and so it plugs in here, you know, like that, which is okay, except the wing was a little tricky. I showed you the bottom wing plugs in here, you see the plugs, and you know, so what I did is I built up the leading edge so that when this plugs in, and let me just get it in place here, you see it'll plug in nice. And you see this I filled it in so this comes up nice here, and
There's a little space, but not much. So this is going to fit in there nice. All right. Now I'm probably going to fly with these because look, this is nice and flexible, and you know I'm flying on cement. However, I did make the other wheels. Let me show you. Here they are. This is what they show on the plan. Of course, it looks great, you know. They have wheel pants and flaring. I'm debating whether to leave this bolster. Maybe I'll spray it light blue like the fuselage. Now, this is a little trickier, okay, because here you have to put in, I was worried at first, like, uh-oh, am I going to have problems getting it in now? But it's fine. You sort of have to put in the bottom wing and this simultaneously when you do this, you see, because it's up there. So I sort of get this going like that. And then you can kind of slide it in there, all right? So it's, you know, it's good. So that was the only other thing I had to figure out, okay? Let me show you this. I did make, where is it, a front end. Here you go. Here's the nose. Got a nice little cone there. This is the safety pin. I like doing that. It's more sensitive than the spring. You get a real nice stop. And this is the freewheel mechanism. Okay, so it pushes on the wire in that direction. And then when the wire hits it, it kind of folds back and it can go into freewheel mode. I still have to put the screw here. Here's the thing that connects to the bobbin and hits the screw. I've shown you this a few times. So that's pretty much done, all right? And of course I have the whole wing sitting here. And I made some props, actually. I actually have 2 props, so. And there's the wing as well, just to show you everything. So I'll put the whole thing together and make any other comments, and I'll show you that, and then that'll be the end of this video. All right, here it is, the Wasp. It's pretty much all done at this point. The very last things I have to do are, I think I'm gonna put the receiver in here. So there's already a compartment there, and I just gotta make a mount for the servo, and that's about it. Now also there's a little headrest, I made that, but I'll glue that on later on, you know. Here, let me put it on there. It goes over here, right behind the cockpit. And I'll do that later. Now there's also a little windshield, okay? So I kind of played with that a little bit. Here's the form I made for it. And I'm gonna vacuum form it. I'll show you this maybe in the part 2. I tried one, but I didn't like the plastic that I used, all right? So I'm gonna do it again. And I think that wraps it up, all right? So we're all ready to get covering. I'm gonna cover the fuselage with polyspan, not the polyspan light is what I usually use, but just regular polyspan, because this is big and I want something strong. I was originally gonna do the wings and the flying surfaces with Mylar, but now I'm really thinking, you know what, I have a bunch of Asaki tissue. I think I'm gonna do that just to keep it a little bit more authentic as far as being an old timer goes, okay? And I think that's just about it. So we're gonna, hopefully I'll see you in the spring. I mean, I'll try to slowly cover this and get it done, and then actually get out flying. That should be a lot of fun. Now when we go flying, I'm not gonna probably use those. They look great. I'll probably just use these because, you know, this only weighs 9 grams. Those weigh 16 grams, so they're heavier. And of course, there's a lot more drag, so I'm not gonna fly with them. And also landing on concrete, good chance they'll get broken. So clearly not gonna trim with them. Maybe later on, I'll give it a shot. All right, so let's see how it goes, and I'll see you soon, I hope.